We're here today on the 5th anniversary of the war in Iraq, and it's a war that working people have been have fought and died in from the very beginning. We've opposed it from the beginning, but as we understand more and more that it's just a war for oil, it's a war for the rich, and not to bring democracy to Iraq or anywhere else. The support for the war, or against the war, has gotten stronger and stronger, and we continue to protest until this is over.
George Bush, today, on the 5th anniversary of the war, has the audacity to say that the war in Iraq is a success. Are you kidding me? 1.3 million Iraqis dead, 6 million refugees, 4,000 U.S. troops dead, 250,000 troops wounded or disabled. This war is a catastrophe. George Bush is a war criminal. Washington's full of war criminals.
Why hasn't the war ended? I think the reason the war hasn't ended is because the politicians, both the Democrats and the Republicans, have no real interest in ending the war, in the sense that they are both totally committed to controlling the resources in the Middle East, particularly the oil. And the only difference between the Democrats and the Republicans, I think, is that the Democrats think that they should do it in a smarter way. Too often, we keep hoping that there's going to be somebody on a white horse to come and solve our problems, whether it's Obama or Clinton or even Kucinich. And the reality is, until there's a mass movement of workers and students and soldiers, most especially soldiers, to resist and oppose U.S. imperialism, until we build that kind of a movement, we're going to continue to have wars of race, wars of domination, racist wars, and racist attacks in this country.
We are the Iraq Veterans Against the War, and these are the times that try men's souls, and we are your winter soldiers. We're here to let everybody know that if you do not bring the troops home now, we're going to bring ourselves home now, and we are sick of fighting for this illegal and unjust occupation. We are sick of committing ourselves to lives where we have to contradict our moral responsibilities and our ethics. And we want it to end now. We recently went to Washington, D.C. to testify so the American people could hear about the things that we have done, what we have done as men and women in the United States military, and that's available online.
On Democracy Now! For the past week, Amy Goodman has been carrying coverage of the Winter Soldier hearings, where Iraq veterans who participated in atrocities are talking about the realities on the ground in Iraq, the fact that American soldiers have been sort of indiscriminately firing on civilians, and that, you know, this happens anytime you have an occupation. It leads to atrocities on the part of the occupation forces, and there's been very little talk, at least since Abu Ghraib, when there was a sort of brief momentary mention of this in the media. There's been very little talk about these atrocities, and yet all this past week in the alternative media on Democracy Now!, Amy Goodman's radio show and television show, we've been hearing testimony, one soldier after another, talking about atrocities that they witnessed or themselves took part in. And that, I think, is symptomatic also of the media's treatment of the war.
The reason I'm here is because I think being basically a silent witness to allow people to see what is going on in their names across the globe on a daily basis.
When the troops stop fighting the war's over.
Aaron Hughes of the Iraq Veterans Against the War ended his presentation with when the soldiers stop fighting, the war will end. When labor stops delivering the bullets, could it possibly the war would end? Could labor use its muscle?
Well, labor is part of a broad coalition that needs to stand together with all the people that are here. And it's true. I mean, labor is uniquely situated. That we make the bullets and the guns that are going over there, and we do this so that we can feed our families and such. And we need to stand together and start to use our labor for productive sources to build schools and have health care and have people have a decent living again.
What is wrong with us after 5 years that we still have this war going on? We don't really have an effective politics to deal with this war, and we need one, obviously. We don't have the presidential candidates, so we are not dealing with this war in a way that's really going to end it.
Maybe you would be surprised to know that Mexico is the third country who has lost more soldiers in Iraq. Mexico is a neutral country. Mexico didn't send anybody there, but so many Mexicans are enrolled in the U.S. Army and they are sent to fight in Iraq. Altogether, there are over 33,000 immigrants in the U.S. Army fighting in Iraq. Most of them because they are looking for something quite difficult to get in this country: citizenship. We have kids that have joined the Army in order to become citizens and then legalize their parents. And then these kids can't legalize their parents because they come back in a coffin. That's what is happening with many immigrants in this army. There are students thinking about joining the army because the army is going to pay them for their studies, their careers. They want to become physicians. They want to become dentists. And what they become is just another casualty in Iraq. Another soldier that died uselessly, absolutely uselessly in Iraq.
We all know why we're all here today, because we all have a deep care for people, the Iraqis who are dying across oceans, and our soldiers who are dying who should be home now. I have friends in Iraq who I particularly care, and we all know that this war is illegitimate, unjust. What do we want? Troops out! What do we want?
We need to stop this war. We need to stop it now. The reason we're against the war in Teamster 743 is for 3 reasons. 1, we pay. 2, we die. And 3, it just isn't right. The people that are dying in this war come from the poorest sections of the United States. They come from working class families. When you hear about a casualty, it's almost always somebody from a working class background, no matter which side they were fighting on. We're going to continue protesting this war. We're not going to stop until it's done. We started early on and we're going to continue because this is a matter of justice.
In the mainstream American media, there's been virtually no reporting about the fairly large anti-war demonstrations happening in Europe. Over the past week, there's been some large demonstrations in England, and also a number of demonstrations in places like Germany and France. These are not getting reported at all. So there's been, I think, a virtual blackout on the anti-war movement, and that's just sort of on top of all of the other distortions in the media's coverage of the war.
Iraq for Iraqis!
Troops out now!
Iraq for Iraqis!
Troops out now!
Healthcare, there is none. Funding for the schools, there is none. Funding for the housing, there is none. We need to stop the war and bring our troops home. I know you hear this word a lot. Change, is a word that's often used in the political arena. Have you not heard that? The word change is being thrown around like copper pennies in every direction. But in order to change this trend of an unjust war, change will come, and it will come because we acted, meaning the power is in the people. Say, all power to the people! All power to the people! Stop this war! Stop this war! Stop this war!
On the evening of March 20th, 2003, they arrested over 800 of us over here in revenge for taking Lakeshore Drive at the start of this illegal war. And for that illegal war, what has happened to Bush? Has he been arrested? No! Instead, they have arrested anti-war protesters. Some of us were arrested in January of this year for protesting against Bush, while Bush, that war criminal, met with Mayor Daley, met with Cardinal George, and met with the city's business elite at the Union Club here in downtown Chicago. And he went away without being arrested. That is a crime. For a crime. So many of our Democratic politicians in this town, while claiming to be against the war, continue to vote funding for it. The entire Chicago congressional delegation has done that over and over again. So I think we need to tell people the way we'll stop this war is not by voting for these clowns, but by doing exactly what you guys are doing here today. Thank you.
The wrong people are running this country. The working people, the people who produce everything, the people who make everything, we should run this country, and we should be united with the workers in Iraq, the workers in Russia, and the workers in China. We need a worldwide movement.